Hey Alice, welcome back. You came at a good time. I'm here with Anana Kaye. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Alice.
This will be a fun time. You just recently did Americana Fest. That was
Mhm.
at D's, right?
We did a bunch of gigs actually. One of them was at D's. Yeah,
Okay.
we're busy this year.
Is Americana Fest like across multiple venues then?
Yes,
Okay,
it's
gotcha.
similar to South by in a ways. It's happening all around town, different venues, small and big.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you were telling us earlier you're originally from Georgia,
Yes, I
the
am.
the country, not the US territory.
Not the U.S. territory. No, yeah, Georgia is a little country in Eastern Europe slash Western Asia because it's between
Hmm.
East and West. And yeah, I'm from Georgia.
What was this the first place you came to in America?
No, I lived in New York City.
Oh, okay.
So, but one may argue that New York City is not really America. So yes,
That's funny. Why do people say that?
it's a sphere of its own. It's just so multicultural, and I don't know.
It's like a port city, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really got a sense that I lived in America for the first time when I moved to Nashville.
Gotcha.
Really, in Tennessee, it's
Hmm.
different.
Did music bring you here? Is that
Yeah,
cool?
definitely. Yeah.
How long have you been you're first of all, you're a singer-songwriter.
I am.
And I've seen your name on bills over the last at least year pop up. I actually haven't seen you play, but I've seen clips of you play, and I like what you do. It's very interesting.
Thank you. I'm glad that comes through
Yeah.
video. Yeah.
So how long have you been making music?
Around 10 years when I moved to the States, really. That's when I really started pursuing this thing. Before then, I'd always been playing music, but never
Hmm.
really did my own thing in Georgia. Yeah, I grew up playing classical music,
Okay.
piano, um, and then had a kind of a divorce with music for a little bit, and then picked up a guitar and started writing songs. And my friends and I would busk in the subway and things like that.
That's
So yeah.
awesome. Busking, artists I've talked to that have done the New York subway busking thing, like that is a great way to become a performer, like to get practice, from what I understand.
Yes, I'd never done it in New York. This was in Tbilisi in Georgia,
Oh,
but
okay.
it is a good because you really got to stop people on their tracks.
Hmm.
So and they gotta retain their attention for a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I remember it very fondly.
Is that what brought you to New York? Is music?
I actually followed my husband who was already living in the States. So love and music.
Nice.
That
That's awesome. And you said that was like 10 years ago?
was 10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. And you were making music in Georgia as well, doing subways, busking. Do you come from a
Yeah.
musical household?
No, not really. My dad's a mathematician.
Oh, okay.
He deciphers black boxes of airplanes. Pretty
Whoa,
niche
that's crazy.
profession, yeah. Yeah, and my mom was a teacher, so not really, but I think I think members of my family were very artistic, but a lot of that was sort of culturally silenced a little
Hmm.
because unless you were from a certain type of artistic families, it's not really, it wasn't something that was very much encouraged.
Okay.
Um, I wasn't really doing music in Georgia. I was, playing for fun,
Yeah.
basking and things like that. But uh, what I don't know, back in the day when I left Georgia, unless you were in classical music, and just going down the conservatory route, there wasn't really a place for, professional musicians to exist. Or at least
Gotcha.
that was my impression
Hmm.
as a teenager then. So I was studying, just being on an academic um, journey there. Yeah,
Gotcha. There's not a lot of, unless you're like um like pursuing a formal like classical field, there's not a lot of options.
there wasn't a lot of
Yeah.
options. Yes, although we did have when I was growing up a pretty big wave of alternative bands,
Hmm.
and I was very inspired by them. It was very, very cool. But it was really when I moved to the States when I started doing music, because really started recording. And yeah, that's something that I really love doing.
What's something about, I guess, Georgia that like people in America wouldn't expect or like understand?
Everything.
Everything's different.
There's strange similarities between a Georgian character and an American character that I've observed over the last 10 years of being an immigrant here. Actually, I just became an American last year. I was
Congratulations.
sworn in, so I'm a citizen now. That was very important for me. Since I'd been living here for so long. I wanted to participate and be a proper citizen. There's a lot. First of all, it's a very small country. Not a lot of people know about it, but it happens to be a very old country with lots of history. It's been a part of many different empires that have risen and fallen, and it stood there for a long time and somehow clung to its independence, which is a pretty big deal. And it's an ongoing challenge. I mean, we're having troubles now trying to stay
Really?
independent, trying to stay a democracy with Russia being bordering us from the north. It's a big threat to our democracy. So it's an ongoing battle, but we're still fighting it.
Do you think if Russia were, for example, to take Ukraine, do you think they would continue to expand to other bordering nations?
Yes, big yes.
Is it a currently dangerous place to live?
Georgia?
Yeah.
You mean physical safety?
Well, I guess it's kind of dangerous here too.
Yes, not any more than here. Obviously, there's this looming threat of war. That there's this
So
fear that what
tension.
happened in Ukraine will happen in Georgia.
I gotcha.
In 2008, we were attacked by Russia, and that was when I was a young teenager. I still remember it. It was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. So we were kind of testing ground to what happened in Ukraine recently, and it's still happening. And right now, the ruling party, who are very much the puppet government installed by Russia, are in there. I saw this like on the way here. I was having such a good day, and then I saw the marketing ads for the elections that are coming up by the ruling party, and it just made me so angry and destabilized me. They're just using the tactic of fear, and it was a banner on the left. There was a cathedral in Ukraine completely destroyed, and it said no to war. And on the right, it was just like a beautiful Georgian cathedral and say yes to peace. So it's very much choose peace. It's okay if we integrate with the.
I see. So it's done through the lens of let's choose peace, not war. But what that would mean is if another country comes in and takes over, just let them do whatever they want.
Because I mean, nobody's a bigger peace fighter than Putin.
Yeah.
He just wants peace on his terms.
I mean, it really does feel like obviously what's happening in Ukraine is horrible, and I really like. It's not like NATO cares about Ukraine either, though. You know, they're both using. It's horrible because both sides are using Ukraine.
Yes, absolutely. And at the end of the day, there's also something that I feel like gets lost in conversations in the West is the Ukrainian agency. Because we talk about the big players like, the West and Russia, but Ukrainians are getting up every day choosing to still fight, which is, I mean, we're not used to it in our worlds right now, but it's a very archaic thing to say, I choose courage, I choose to fight and prioritize freedom and ideals of my country versus living in peace.
Sure.
Right. And that's when sometimes I stop being a pacifist and I admit that there are things that are worth fighting for.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. That's so
true.
It's here in America, like Americans take what we have for granted like not having to fight for our nation and our liberties the way Georgia has done
Mhm.
throughout history, the way Ukraine's doing right now. Like it, yeah. The most popular thing to do in America right now is talk bad about America, you
Oh,
know? Yeah.
you just, yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, but it really is like, it's kind of disrespectful to these European countries that have to constantly fight for their liberties.
Oh, absolutely. And as a fresh American, um, I love this country. I mean, the reason I became a citizen is because I fell in love with this country, and there are so many beautiful things about it that you can't say about any other countries in the world. Um, for example, you can't define an American to me
Yeah.
because an American can be anybody, and
Yeah.
it's also constantly changing.
Yeah.
So I
America
find that very unique and cool.
America's kind of, I mean, not kind of, like completely composed of immigrants, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, except for the people that were here,
Hmm.
that, which is a big part of my ancestry, is the people that were here and then completely taken advantage of. So, but I mean, that's Europe, that's England doing that, you know? America is the result of that melting pot of people coming from all over the world to, it's like you're saying though, there is no defining characteristic of an American.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
There is an essay that I read kind of around the same time I was going to get sworn in at the courthouse in Nashville. Um, Ralph Ellison, The Little Men at the Cheeho Station. It is one of the most beautiful essays I've ever read about what is it to be an American and who is an American, really.
Mm.
And Ralph Ellison was he's just quickly became one of my favorite writers. He was a student, was studying, I believe, trumpet at the Tuskegee University, and he had the essay starts like this, like he had a bad recital and he was criticized, and he goes to one of his favorite music teachers and just tries to complain a little, to whine a little. And then she turns to him, it's like, in this country, you have to always play your best because you
Mm.
never know who's going to be listening, even if it's a little man behind the stove at the Cheeho station.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the essay goes into breaking down who is this little man behind the Cheeho station. And it's through the lens of music. I just think it's just wonderful. And I feel like every American artist should read it.
Mm.
It just completely changed my
That's really cool. I'll check
outlook.
that
And
out.
at the same time, we're touring, right? We're going to these places and sometimes middle of nowhere in Iowa or Mississippi, and it's people that come out there and just listen to you. I've been shocked by it. Like you could never expect the audience you're gonna get.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting too how like when you go out to these smaller places, you'll actually get like a lot of the time like bigger crowds than
Uh-huh.
you will like in Nashville. Like Nashville's actually like one of the hardest places to get a crowd.
Well, because everybody's a musician
Everyone's a
here.
musician. The entire crowd is like your friends that are also musicians.
Or people are constantly judging you.
Yeah,
Not the
there's a
kind
lot
of
of
bridge
that.
I would write.
But yeah, it is really interesting. And I love the principle you're describing in that essay, which is like always always do your best. Um, Whether you're playing to one person or a
Uh-huh.
thousand, it really shouldn't affect the performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, I think, yeah, America is seriously taken for granted, by mostly by Americans
Yes, Americans are
who've never left
very
the
hard on
country.
themselves. And there's like, I feel like it's so hard because I relate to this. Like I felt like that when I was left Georgia. I felt I was very self-critical of, being Georgian. And it took me 10 years of being away from my country to really appreciate it,
Mm,
to look at my culture from a different lens and fall in love with it again.
mm,
So I relate to that, angry teenager feeling.
Do you go back?
I do go back to Georgia. So yes, Americans are very, very hard on themselves. And yeah, the balance is to criticize your country, um, because as we know, America has done a lot of terrible things,
Oh, and is
and
currently doing a lot of terrible
and it is
things.
an empire
Yeah,
after all.
I'm very critical of America.
Yes,
I
so we
love,
should definitely criticize it, but
yeah,
there's, I think, like fine line between not losing the love for your country, which is not, I don't mean like the crazy patriotism that is just glorifying
mm,
your past or whatever it is. So striking a balance between difficult, it's just difficult love, like,
yeah. Something I've learned just now talking to you is because like I am on like I'm a big believer in like the Constitution,
mhm,
like the Declaration of Independence, and what America is supposed to be.
right.
Now, the empire you're describing, the military industrial complex, to me, the America that is the actual America that exists is like the biggest villain on the planet,
Mm,
like involving themselves in everything. And it's always done in the sense of like virtue. Like
yeah,
NATO getting involved in Ukraine is like we have to help them for the sake of liberty. And it's like, no, you're giving them aid and weapons so that you can then get farm. It's a very rich farmland area. Like, so the trade-off there is that you might be liberated from Russia and get what you need in order to defend yourself, but now you will be owned by it's choose your dictator.
yeah, I
But
agree. But at the same time, the aspect that Americans don't see, and this I know from firsthand because
sure,
I'm so close to the Ukrainian culture. Georgia's very close to Ukraine. I've had my parents lived in Kiev for 15 years. I have friends there. Some Ukrainians are begging for that help.
mm,
So, because we know only one evil that's very apparent to us.
I got you.
So, and we, yeah, there is a part of, Eastern Europe that still idealizes the West as in the land of freedom, and how that, if that's still true or not, that's another subject. But yes, so I don't know. There's nuances to everything,
Sure.
right?
Where I yes, I agree with you. And where I was going with that is because I am so critical of the UN and NATO and America,
Mm,
I don't really see this side that you're pointing out to me, which
right.
is like I'm looking at the US and Russia,
Mhm.
not the actual people that are that are actually putting their lives at risk here
Right.
to defend their
Mhm.
countries. And I mean, that's the real story here is that like it has nothing to do with America or the UN or Russia. It's about Ukrainians fighting for their liberty.
Well,
And
I mean, at the end of the day, if I don't think about ideas itself that are these people fighting for, then it can drive me crazy. And I mean, we're coming around on third year of war now in
yeah,
Ukraine. I've gone through a whole spectrum of emotion associated with it, and I was so angry at first. I left Georgia just 2 days before the war started in Ukraine. And when I left Georgia, I was like, okay, well, I hope my plane makes it, because the things were very tense. And then when this happened, I was so angry. And then you start, if you, this happens to me a lot because I care about what's happening in the world. I want to be as educated in what happens in the world as possible, but then I can't sustain that because it's hard to hold that in.
oh
And
yeah,
for that not to hurt your, mental
yeah,
health and all that. And
it'll
then
drive you crazy.
you retract, and then you go within, and then you have to work on internal things.
Yeah,
It's just constant battle of, outward and inner and outer peace, and trying to battle in both places, for
I,
me at least.
I struggle with that too. It,
My train of thought just took me to somewhere else. But yeah, I do struggle with that.
it's hard. There's a lot going on in the world, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. And that's a
Yes.
day-to-day issue for me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, when we get overwhelmed and we have this intense emotional reactions to things, we can't do anything about it. And I find that I become more, I, my mind becomes poisoned if I hold a lot of anger or whatever, and then life around me gets worse because I'm not taking agency in areas where I can take agency.
Sure. That's so true. I do the same thing.
On the little on the little things I can change.
You're so right. I am just now, for the first time in my life, understanding what I can and can't do. Because like I try to fix the world and
Right.
ignore what is right in front of me.
It's this because either we have a tremendous emotional reaction to something, that injustice that is being done in the world, or then the other opposite is go hard, cold, realpolitik and just talk about the numbers and the statistics and things like that. So, and neither of those are sustainable. So somehow, like walking the middle way there is the key, and it's very hard.
Did you grow up with religion?
Yes, I did. I grew up with Orthodox Christianity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me too.
You did?
Well, yes, and
No way.
I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, so it was
that's interesting. So that's a little different.
Oh yeah. It's a weird one.
Oh, I thought you said me too with Orthodox Christianity. I was just very surprised.
When you say Orthodox, you have to.
Orthodox Christianity
Alice doesn't really.
is an Eastern version of Christianity.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like they're different from Catholics.
That's not what I thought Orthodox meant.
Orthodox meant it's the split, the church split in what was it, 11th century or something like that.
So yeah,
Catholics and
that is
Eastern
different
Orthodox.
from what I grew up
yes,
with. Okay.
Yeah. So
is that the same as the Orthodox Church that is in, I believe, Nigeria and some of Africa? There's also,
I am not familiar. Ethiopia, I think, is.
They refer to it as
Coptics. Orthodox. Yeah.
But the word Orthodox can be.
The word Orthodox is just a word, right?
It's a word,
but
right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Here we're very denominational as far as.
Oh yes, it's
I thought Orthodox was kind of like
it means
like strict
or original or.
Yeah, it's a specific branch of Christianity. So the church schism happened, I think, in the 11th century, and it split into the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church. So those were the two oldest branches of Christianity, and then you have the Reformation. And
I am learning so much. Thank you for this. This is very insightful.
I'm very passionate about the religion. I'm not a religious person. I don't practice religion, but
I am also very interested in it.
I'm studying about
okay.
it. Yeah.
For me, it was I did not appreciate it until I was away from it. Was that the same for you too?
Absolutely. I've come full circle. I mean, I'm not full circle because I'm not a Christian, but I really
half circle.
half circle, half moon somehow.
Yeah.
I've come to love the parts of me that, parts of my childhood that were very much affected by my upbringing. I just appreciate a lot of my religious upbringing, really.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is just my experience.
My
family is still very religious. We argue about it all the time.
So the reason I brought it up is like that guilt, like trying to save the world, like caring so much, I know for me at least is because of a strict religious upbringing.
Oh, really?
Because I do and I was just wondering if it was the same for you, because like the reason I care so much is like, even though I'm not a Christian, I do that thing where like there's a scripture that's like if you are aware of something and you don't do anything about it, then you're blood guilty. It's as if you did that, like you're guilty for it. And I feel that like I have to try to fix everything, and if I don't, then I failed, and I feel that very strongly. It's a big part of why we do this podcast is I'm a very radical person. I think our solutions, there's not easy solutions. It's kind of what you're describing about you have to fight for your liberties. And we're slowly, because we take them for granted and we don't appreciate them here in America, they are being slowly and subtly taken away from us. And I'm like, it's a day-to-day struggle for me not to be real radical and do some shit I shouldn't. So the only thing that keeps me sane is having conversations about it and talking about it. So
you're speaking of the sin of omission.
Yeah.
James 4:17.
Thank you for
this the
anyone who does not do the right thing to do, who knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, commits sin.
I have.
Oh, that's interesting. Who knows the right thing to do but doesn't do it? That's yeah.
And yeah, I know what to do, and that's a terrible burden to have.
The Google biblical translation. I don't know what.
I'm so glad you looked that up because I've quoted that so many times on, or a version of that so many times on the episode and didn't know which scripture it was. So thank you for that.
I'm trying to be quick.
Yeah, but that was a long-winded way of just asking. Do you think the reason you care so much is because of religious being Orthodox Christian?
I don't know. I don't remember the big pressure of healing the world.
Have you always cared?
Yes. My concerns in Georgia when I was growing up were a little smaller because Georgia is, because of where it's located, everything is so localized, but I feel like whatever's happening in Georgia is kind of like you can translate it to the world. Like right now, like we have a big election coming up, and I feel like the outcome of this election is going to be sort of a prophetic prognosis for the coming years.
Okay.
So I will get into that later, but yes, I don't think so. I remember my Christian upbringing being more sort of focused on personal Christianity and personal work. I had a very big divorce from the church when I was a teenager. I was very angry.
Me too.
I can't even think of the reasons anymore. I was just, typical. And then, classical route, you go hard atheist.
That is exactly what I did. Yeah.
And then you just soften a little, and then you're like, I'm not really an atheist anymore. I'm agnostic. So did the whole thing. I had two big loves always. It was at first when I was still a believing kid, I obviously had faith in Christ and all that, but a second part of me was always into Greeks.
Into Greeks?
Into Greeks.
Okay.
Into Greek philosophy, Greek mythology.
Yeah.
So
that's the cornerstone of all that we have, really.
Yes,
and Christianity.
Eastern Orthodox Christianity specifically is a Greek version of Christianity.
Okay.
Right, rather than the Western one that's mostly based on Latin text, like Latin translations of the
Interesting
Gospels. So it's because of its geography and everything, it's stayed true to the Greek part of the world. It was very, very much a continuation of the Greek world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So a lot of our, I just like a lot of our Holy Fathers that we would read were also Neoplatonic philosophers, and so they were just continuation of this, Socratic philosophy in some ways. So I was always, I don't know, remember being very young, and this was the books I could find in my own home. So I don't know if it was my mom's books or my dad's books, but it's just a book of Greek mythology, and I could not put it down. I was obsessed because it's so exciting for a young kid, because it's the first time you're reading about this complicated ideas.
That encompasses everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
I remember being absolutely shocked that Hera was the wife of Zeus while being his sister. And this was like, I was a young kid reading this. But then after I got into mythology, so it was like a continuation, then I just couldn't stop going to the library. And then I read, not the whole thing, but it was like a little reduction of histories by Herodotus. So I just fell in love with the ancient world and studying the history of the ancient world, Hellenic history, and then gradual transition from that was into tragedy and the plays. So at the same time, I fell in
You're
love.
very well read. Okay.
Not really. I try.
You wouldn't say that, but
Not really. I struggle
compared
with
to
it.
Americans.
I read short things. That's my answer. I don't have the mental capacity to read long books. That's why I stick to tragedies or plays because they're very
Condensed.
digestible.
Okay.
But I was so when time comes and I'm finishing high school, right? And have to do something with my life. And in Georgia, I was very much expected to, for you to go to university after high school. So I know I can't do music the way I would like to because I had already parted ways with classical music. So I'm like, there's two things I like in the world outside of music: films and philosophy and literature. So it was a toss between, I think I applied both into like cinema something, just like cinema, to become a cinema critic. What an obnoxious thing to be.
I'm such a critic. I'm such an art
I'm such
critic.
a critic. And philosophy. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to study philosophy. So I was a philosophy student. And then I quit and started writing songs. And now that's what I do.
That's a great background to approach music from, is not music, but like other things,
Yes.
I think that gives an artist like I write poetry, but I'm heavily influenced by like hip hop,
Okay.
not traditional poetry.
Oh,
Like,
beautiful.
I don't like poetry, but I write poetry. I like hip hop, which is what
everything is
actually
poetry.
yeah,
So,
sure. Yeah. Good
If
point.
if you think about it in a broader sense, I
I
never
just don't like
really.
the traditional poets.
Yeah, I didn't read a lot of poems when I was growing up. I was always more into prose, but I love the poetry of it. So that's
Yeah.
yeah, I've come around. Yeah.
Okay, so I have so many questions. Let me think here. So, okay, what is the doctrine of Orthodox Christianity? Does it split the way like it does in America, where you have like Presbyterians and
Yeah.
or is there one singular doctrine?
There's one singular church.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I believe
we don't have
all
any
of those are there, but
denominations.
most of the other ones are breakoffs from
It starts with Orthodox. Okay.
Orthodox, where Catholicism was a very early breakoff that.
Oh, so this is OG Greek.
Yeah.
This is OG Greek Christian. So
uncorrupted, like unsplit.
yes.
Okay.
I don't remember many dates, but I think I have this one right. It's the church, the Christian church split into two different branches: Catholicism, Western Christianity, Catholicism, and Eastern Christianity, Greek version.
Okay.
It's such a simplified way of thinking about it. In 1054.
Okay.
And then you have the West with, in common years, the Middle Ages with Crusades and all that. And East, you have the Byzantine Empire.
Okay.
So,
and they would have been Orthodox,
Catholic,
I guess.
sorry?
The Byzantine Empire would be Orthodox.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you.
And then that falls apart, and as all things do.
I think that's why it is the same as what goes to Africa, because a lot of the African.
The Coptic Church is Orthodox, yeah.
And then when you go into England, as we've discussed many times on here, as I call the New Testament, the Roman control manual that was given to the Vikings that took over England to teach them how to better control the populace.
Yeah, isn't it funny how the Roman Empire just becomes Catholicism?
And then when they split, then in Europe, I think that's where a lot of your different denominations like that split from.
Okay, but Eastern Orthodox Christianity is old. So what is that?
Well,
what is that?
I mean,
doctrine?
all Christianity is old. It just depends.
Sure.
I mean, well, of course, I mean, the Byzantine Empire was also a continuation of Rome in some ways. So,
okay.
I don't know how. I think coming back to it now, what I'm learning is that the Holy Fathers, the Orthodox Holy Fathers, it was just continuation of Greek legacy, a lot more than the Western Christianity.
Okay.
And the Enlightenment and the whole rationality and all that didn't really. It's a lot more mystical, in my opinion.
What is like? Let me get. I guess I should be more specific. Do they? is hell a thing?
Hell? Yes. I mean, same Christian.
Well, not all Christians believe in hell.
They don't.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Jehovah's Witnesses, for example.
I don't know that. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So that's why I'm interested in specifics about the
I
doctrine.
think so. I mean,
Is there a
the
heaven?
doctrine is the four gospels, and
Like, so
then
people
early church
go
fathers.
to heaven and hell in Orthodox?
I believe so.
Okay.
From what I remember.
Okay.
But the way you practice is a little different. You have a little bit more of a personal relationship with your priest, who's your spiritual father. So it's not like you just go there and give confessions. Like it's somebody it's your therapist, it's your close friend, it's just your guide through life.
Old Catholicism is more like that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's much more involved, but like when you come into the South, you don't see confessionals in Catholic churches here.
Is Jesus God?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Trinity is very much the same thing.
Okay. A Trinitarian. Okay. I
It's a
got
little,
you. I'm with you.
so we're close to Armenia, right? Armenia is our neighbor. I believe Armenians are apostolic Christians, so they, oh, I may get this wrong, but the difference between a Georgian church and an Armenian church is that the dual nature of Christ is that he's a God and a man.
Okay.
I believe they
A
think
God
it's
or God?
God, sorry, English.
No, no.
Articles
you're
don't
fine.
exist in my language. I don't understand.
No, you're fine. So in semantically, it can sometimes that can be a big difference.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
wanted to make sure I understand what you're
No,
saying.
no, I got you. No, I struggle with articles and pronouns because in Georgian, we don't have either of those things.
Gotcha. Because I know there's a scripture that says that Satan is the God of the world. So it gets weird when we talk.
Interesting.
There's like capital G God, and then there's like lowercase gods. Like there's another scripture that says like it's talking about a man, and it says he is a God among men, basically meaning that he is like a step above. It might be about Caesar. I can't remember. But yeah. Anyway, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But is there is the cross prevalent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm learning so much. Thank you
I mean,
for humoring my questions.
I'm not an expert on these
Okay.
things. I grew up Orthodox Christian. Probably the biggest takeaways from it that I still, hold dear to my heart is the music and the singing. The chants, it's Gregorian chanting, and it's also mixed with a lot of like Georgian folk, which is polyphonic singings with different voices merging together. It's
Whoa.
Very beautiful.
Oh, sure.
You would really like it. So
that sounds like
that's one of my earliest memories.
That's got to be a very profound spiritual thing to experience when it's like happening and being a part of it. Like
I saw some posts that you had done where you're doing some of those. I thought that was really
Oh
interesting.
yes,
Wow,
yeah.
guys.
It's hard to do because you can't do it as one person. I mean,
Okay.
in recordings, I channel, unchanneled that little, stacking vocals, but you really need a lot of people to.
So do y'all
Gotcha.
still have Gregorian chants?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely,
My,
yeah.
my mother had told me, I was raised Catholic, of course I'm not at all. But mother had told me that years and years back that the council, whatever, had removed them.
was that
Was that-
Nicaea?
it-
Council of Nicaea?
I'm not certain, but she remembered, that's what she liked about going to mass was in these great cathedrals, and she could hear Gregorian chants, and they'd do it in Latin, still do mass in Latin. But that's, things change even in religions because they're businesses. Yeah.
That actually brings me to another question. When you were a kid growing up, did y'all observe the Passover, like passing of bread and wine?
Communion, you mean?
Communion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Passover.
Passover. That's a Jewish thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Communion,
Oh my God, I didn't
technically,
know
is
We always called it the memorial
yes.
where what I grew up in.
Memorial. Yes, we did observe communion.
Okay.
Mhm.
Did y'all eat it or did you just pass it by?
Eat it. Yeah,
Okay.
we had bread.
Okay. So we
And
just
wine, and
passed
real
it.
wine, not like grape juice,
Yeah.
like here.
When I grew up, we would all pass it by. Like we wouldn't partake of it. We
Oh,
would all just touch it, like touch the plate.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
Jehovah's Witnesses are, it's a cult, first of all. Let me be the first to say that. And my entire family is like generations deep in it.
Oh, wow.
I'm kind of like the black sheep of the family, but it is, I will be the first to say it is very much a cult.
Okay.
But it's weird. Like they believe some very different things than a lot of other sects of Christianity.
Hmm.
Which is why I'm very interested to know like what other Christian faiths
Yes.
think, like the particulars of it.
When y'all take communion, y'all have to make communion like there's a certain age that you go and discuss. Because when I was being raised, I never made what's called made communion, so I never took communion. There was supposed to be a point, I guess, as I got older that I went and had a discussion with the priest, and that's the point in which you were allowed to start taking communion.
I remember partaking in it very young. But when I got older, you had to, I mean, the expected thing was that you would get confession first, the day before, I
Okay.
believe. And then you would take communion. I
Did y'all have confirmation?
confirmation. What is that?
That was
I
like
trying to translate in my head.
I want to say it's very similar to, I guess, it's a certain age after communion
Oh.
that it's
No.
another.
I've heard about that from my friend who grew up Baptist. No, we did not have anything like that. You just get baptized when
Y'all
you're
don't,
very early, and that's
y'all
it.
don't recognize saints.
Yes, we do.
Y'all do?
Oh, okay.
Saints are recognized, and beyond that, Orthodox Church is very heavy on iconography.
Okay, so it's very
You've probably
similar.
seen some of those Eastern icons that are very, how do you say it? The style is kind of primitive, meaning that there's no shadows. It's all very much lines. And I used to paint
Are
them.
these symbols or people?
They're saints, but
Oh,
they
saint.
have
Okay.
symbols in them. So
Huh.
yeah, you must have seen them. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe if I saw it, I'd know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
it's beautiful.
This is all very
really like it,
fascinating
yeah.
to me. So at this point in your life, I want to preface this by saying, like, obviously no one knows the answer, but do you have any ideas about what happens after we die? Like, does anything make more sense to you than
I
anything
would
else?
not claim to know.
Well, none of
and
us know,
I'm
right?
not very interested in it anymore.
Okay. Hey,
I
fair
used to
enough.
be more interested in
Fair
it when
enough.
I was a lot younger, when things, when religion would just really stir me up in a sometimes positive, sometimes negative way.
So before the demons tried to kill you, we were talking about no, but afterlife is something I ask everyone about, and the best answer I've ever gotten about this is it doesn't matter. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
fact that you don't think about it, I think, is actually a great answer.
I have so many challenges, and so much to work on. Just living in the moment is
Sure.
hard enough of a challenge for me.
I get it. I get it. Yeah, philosophy is interesting when you don't have to worry about like survival and just like day-to-day
Yes.
stuff, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Philosophy's been a very kind friend to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can't turn it off. Like I think about these things all the time, and like kind of intrusively sometimes. But
Okay.
yeah.
Something I was told very recently by a friend of mine is that there's a difference when you intellectualize your experience and having an intellectual experience. So I've tried not to avoid intellectual experiences because I like reading, I like watching certain types of movies, but I try not to intellectualize my own experience.
Okay. I think I understand what you're
Okay.
saying.
Don't
Yeah.
intellectualize it.
I guess I'm pretty guilty of that. Yeah.
Don't be guilty.
I'm doing it right now.
Don't do it.
So I kind of like, do you believe in spirits?
Spirits.
Mm-hmm.
I like cognacs
What's
and
that?
brandy.
Oh, you're funny.
We're kind of in the whiskey land, so I enjoy every spirit in moderation.
What about the ones you can't see or drink? What do you think about those?
And times when I have to mime it and pretend I'm not holding things in my hands, that I'm holding things mentally. Okay, I can't run with this very
Yeah.
far, but I don't really think about it that often. No.
So,
So I
like,
wouldn't even know how to answer those questions.
well, I'm asking you about it right now. So
Okay,
I'm asking
keep
you
them
to
coming. I like
I'm
this
asking
pop
you to
quiz.
think about it. So, like, so for me, I also, when I left my parents' house, I was 18 and like annoyingly atheist, like we were talking about earlier, until I had some very profound experiences with a Ouija board
Okay.
and other things that I'm like, oh, well, I'm not a Christian, but I'm definitely not an atheist now.
Okay.
So let me start there. Do you have any? Has anything? Do you have any supernatural stories? Do you have any ghost stories or anything like that?
I don't believe so. No, I maybe had them before and I forgot. I have a terrible memory, so that somehow works in, as a friend to me sometimes because I don't remember a lot of things.
Okay. I definitely didn't until I went like looking for it. Like nothing weird happened to me when I was a kid. It was only when I sought it out. It's only
Okay,
like,
so you will most likely find what you're looking for.
oh yeah, if you go looking for it, you will. If you ask the universe to present you, yeah, you will get what you're looking
Okay.
for. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's something I think about a lot. But okay, so we'll table that. Like maybe we'll come back to that.
Well, to answer it, I believe that there is more than the eye can see and more than our world of tables and chairs. So if that answers the question, yes, but I don't really think about spirits or ghosts that much. It's just something that's not on my radar.
They may or may not. You're kind of agnostic to
Yes,
that.
kind of.
Okay, I understand.
I mean, I'm sure there's some lovely spirits here in this room.
You're sure?
No, I'm sure. 2
Okay.
seconds ago, I believed.
Yeah. Now you went.
The
You
progression
just
is
went from
really-
agnostic to
I am-
devoutly faithful.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. What about aliens? Do you think
Oh,
so?
aliens.
Yeah. So I used to ask people if they believe in aliens, but the answer is always every single time. Well, there's got to be life out there somewhere.
Right.
Do you think they've ever been here? Do you
They've
think
ever
they've
been
ever
here?
been to Earth?
I feel like an alien.
What do you
Maybe
mean
not
by that?
in New York, I felt like an alien.
Oh, you were an alien.
I was an alien.
Only until like a week
I
ago.
was an alien up until I signed my
Yeah.
naturalization document.
Okay, let me get more specific then. Extraterrestrial, like off this planet. Do you think they've ever been here?
Again, I don't really think about it a lot.
So if you were asked to think about it on a podcast, what would you say?
Oh, like now.
Yeah.
If they have been here,
Hmm.
why not?
I'll accept that. I'll
I
accept
can't
that as
really
an answer.
intellectualize this.
Mm.
Why not? My dad used to say a Mariana Trench is like 11 kilometers deep, and there's been life there at the bottom. Without, the pressure is so intense, and there's absolutely no sunlight going down there. So, there's probably life somewhere else too. If under those conditions, life can thrive.
Oh, sure. I mean, there's got to be aliens out there in the universe, 100%. Yeah.
Um,
Have you ever done psychedelics? Have you ever done mushrooms?
I
or
have
LSD?
not.
Okay.
I'm very interested in it, but I haven't done it. It's just not something that I naturally was around.
Yeah.
I'm interested in them, but I'm interested in a lot of things that I have not done.
Have you ever heard the theory about like that being associated with Christianity, like Jesus and mushrooms? You ever heard
I
that?
have not heard that. I have heard about the oracles in the ancient world being on psychedelics
Yeah.
while giving out prophecies. But I'm sure there's, like everything, there's some truth to everything
Yeah.
and nothing.
it definitely like it's a very spiritual thing. It's not like for me it's like never fun. I don't have good times on it. I have very profound, eye-opening
Good
experiences.
times are overrated.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot more to life than having a good time for sure.
Mhm.
Like we were kind of talking about that before. Like why choose peace when you can choose liberty and freedom and expression?
Yes,
It's
I mean,
more,
it's nice to have peace.
yeah,
I welcome peace. I hope for peace. It's-
that's hard to do when
Peace at what cost,
yeah.
Because we talk about cost of war all the time, but we don't talk about cost of peace that much.
Yeah. Well, on that, on kind of on what you're saying, we're headed into some very turbulent times here in America in the next couple of months. We're already in some turbulent times, but it's about to get, regardless of what happens, it's about to get much more topsy-turvy.
Turbulenter.
Yeah, this is a, what would you say, turbulent turn. This is what would you say, like a pivotal moment in American history, what's coming.
Yes, I believe all moments are pivotal, but it's going to be tough. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
not looking forward to. So elections here in November, Georgian elections are in October. We're going to New York City to vote because the consulate, Georgian consulate, is there. My sister, who's studying in grad school in Rochester, she's coming to New York to meet me there with her other Georgian students. So it's going to be pretty intense, and it's very much an existential election for us there. So that's going to be my pre-American election prep, and then we have the big one here.
That's really interesting. So you can vote in the Georgian election from New York.
Yes, so I'm a dual citizen.
Okay, yeah.
It was very important for me to retain my Georgian citizenship after I became an American. There's a Georgian consulate in New York City, and yeah, you're kind of certain states are designated to that consulate, and you go there
Gotcha.
and participate there.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Mhm.
So you don't have to go back to vote. You can just do that from
Yes,
New York.
exactly. And similar, like with Americans that are abroad, they can participate in
Interesting.
American elections.
I had no idea. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the whole world is headed into some interesting times then, not just America.
Oh,
Um,
everything is utterly global.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Everything is utterly global.
Especially like America seems kind of like that. Everyone kind of looks at what's going on in America. Is that true? Or do Americans just think that? Do people pay attention?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I just think American self-importance is very grand. But also people pay attention to what's happening here
Yeah.
because America's a player,
Yeah.
a big player in the world politics.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying. It is like that, but maybe not as much as Americans think it is.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I hear, this is something I get triggered by a lot. Every time I hear from an American that the war in Ukraine is a proxy war, my instinct is to go and say, hey, we are totally capable of fucking shit up on our own, and we have been doing it for centuries, way before CIA was a
I
thing.
gotcha. Okay.
So
that is
it's sort of like reverse exceptionalism, if that makes
well,
sense.
I'm very happy that we're having this conversation because I admittedly did think that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I just purely from experience, my own personal experience of being from the country that I am, we have had challenges with our enemies, and I'm going to call them that, for centuries before America.
I'm seeing now that my blind spot has been that I'm not actually paying attention to what's going on in not just there, but like in Israel and
Mhm.
Palestine. I'm thinking about America's involvement. I'm not actually seeing
Right.
those people. Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, we're all coming at these things from our own cultural biases, right? And we, no matter how we try, we can't erase our biases. It's just something. The lens that we're looking through is the lens we have. The best thing we can do is just wipe wipe the lens, time to time, just to see
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, I really enjoy having these kind of conversations because like I learn a lot, especially like you have a lot you have an interesting perspective and you know a lot of stuff that I don't know. So
I
it's
change
very
my
interesting.
perspective all the time. I mean,
That's healthy.
certain core values that I have stay there, but I, again, like going back to that thing, just if I dwell in the political world, if my mind dwells in that, it's not sustainable for me.
Mhm.
So
It's refreshing hearing that like well anyone say I choose liberty over peace.
right.
Like I'm not about just lying down and letting Russia or anybody tell us what the fuck to do. That is very refreshing to hear.
Right. I mean, sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's sacrifice. You're choosing
We're so soft in
a
America.
fight for your ideals over contentment.
Hmm.
It's
And
also very self-aware that you realize that self-sustainability, you have a limit and you can recognize these things ahead of that. Because I know what you're saying. If I watch, say, police brutality videos, and
Mhm.
get me so flared up that, if I see it pop up, sometimes I just won't watch stuff because it gets you, that's like you're saying, it's not healthy for you. It's not sustainable.
Well,
you can't do anything productive
yes,
with that. And for
anger is an interesting thing because it's one of those vices that we don't condemn in our modern society that much because anger is a great motivator. Anger is necessary for
Mm.
justice, right? We have to.
Fuck yeah.
Yes. So I think anger can be a tool, but it can be something that serves you. But when it goes the other way and you serve anger, it's very dangerous.
Don't let it control you.
Don't let it
That's
control
good.
you.
That is
That's
great advice.
yeah. I'm still figuring it out because I'm a person that deeply cares about the suffering in the world, right? Like I'm not one of those nihilistic people that just doesn't give a shit.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I'm not pointing that thing. I'm not pointing fingers here, but I deeply care. But every time I expose myself to what's happening in the world, sometimes I have to take refuge in inner places to escape from that. I mean, that's the constant battle for me.
Yeah, it's got to be a balance, right? Like you got to pay attention, but you can't let it consume you. You have to find that inner.
You have to
kind of
find things you
balance.
can do to change
Sure.
things
Well,
on your local level, right?
And on that note, what you do is very important. I don't know if you know that, but even if you do, I want you to hear it.
You mean storytelling and
Yes.
songs?
That does change
I
the
think
world. And
I
has a
think it
serious
is
impact on
important.
people.
And even if you don't have a huge reach, I think about this a lot. Like you may not work as a doctor, you may not work in a big hospital in a city, and you may be a doctor in a small village, but you're still practicing medicine and saving
Yeah.
people, right? So to take care when you're writing a song, and I mean, it's a big detour, but throughout this past year, I've had times when I would sit down by the piano, and instead of writing, I would just cry. And it's impossible not to if you're following what's happening in the world.
Yep.
And then nothing would come, and then the other times I would sit down and it would come right away from a point, place of compassion. It's such a beautiful word, compassion. Just a burning through somebody else.
Yeah.
Or like somebody else is burning, somebody else is suffering.
Like that empathy of feeling
Yes.
what someone else is going through. Yeah.
Yes. In Georgian, there's a word, kenatswale. It's a term of endearment. It literally translates to "I will take your place in suffering." I always love like that.
That's a very
Yeah.
a very Christian thing too.
Mhm.
Yeah. I've never been like suicidal. At least I don't think so. But I've been homicidal. I've been I've been like, I should do something about this, you know?
Mm.
And that is an ongoing struggle for me. But there is so much evil in the world that I don't, a lot of people, everyone knows this. That's the thing, right? Everyone knows there's a lot of suffering in the world,
Mhm.
but a lot of people feel like they can't do anything and they feel hopeless about it. But we absolutely can. And I think people in European countries understand that like what you do matters. You can fight. You can fight. And like it's just been a long time since, I mean, America's founded on that. It's founded on rebellion. That's what started America. But it's been a long time since we've done that. And we forget that. And our government does not control us. We control our government. And we need to remind them of that every once in a while, like the Boston Tea Party or examples. And it's just been a long time since America's done that, where we're like, hey, motherfuckers, you work for us. We don't work for you.
At this point, I don't know if anybody's working for us.
Yeah. Well, they're
I don't
supposed
think
to work for
anything
us.
is working.
Yeah, it's falling apart. I know that's right. And I mean, you understand some history, like it will collapse eventually.
Only a little. Again, like I am cursed and blessed with a terrible memory. So half of what I've read, I do not remember.
Hmm.
I will tell you, I am very interested and have always been in the ancient world. Never really studied that much about Rome, except for some, philosophy coming out of Rome. But Athens, I was always very curious about, and you hear a lot of comparison between Rome and America. There's also comparison between Athens and Athenian Empire and the collapse of that, and the art then, and the thinking that was coming out like post Periclean Athens. It's, I mean, if you get a chance, Pericles' funeral oration. This is when the first batch of soldiers, dead soldiers, come back from the battle with Sparta when Peloponnesian Wars are starting, and he gives a speech, and it's called funeral oration. It is so incredibly modern. You'd think it was written by
Wow.
a speechwriter today, and it's all about just in some ways it's very hubristic and just praising the Athenian culture as the best culture out there, the most enlightened one. Um, yes, I think there's so many parallels between ancient Athens. I visited Athens with my sister a couple of years ago, and it was very intense for me. It was like for a Christian going to Jerusalem or something. So yeah,
It's like Mecca.
it's like Mecca. I mean, I was there. I saw the jail of Socrates and
That's cool.
Parthenon, whatever's left. I mean, it's not as cool as the one we have in Nashville.
It's kind of mid. One in Nashville,
Yeah.
pretty lit. That's funny.
But
It's nothing like the one we got in Nashville. That's so funny.
I find it very cool that I wanted to live in Athens because I was just like, a little kid obsessed with anything Greek, and I ended up in some town in America with a Parthenon.
Yeah.
The irony.
What's your favorite place to play in Nashville?
I love the 5 Spot.
Yeah.
The Bowery Vault. That's one of
Bowery.
my favorite venues. It's beautiful listening room. I
It's-
love Dee's Cocktail Lounge. That's
Yeah.
a neighborhood bar. Just love. Yeah, there's so many great places.
Yeah, I love 5 Spot. I love D's. Bowery upsets me sometimes, but that's a story for another
It's still
time.
one of the best places to listen to music intimately. I really enjoy playing there.
It is a very it's very tight.
Yes.
It's like yeah. Well, I'll table that for another time.
Nashville is pretty. I mean, as much as it's easy to criticize Nashville, it's a pretty unique place in the world.
It's funny. As a Nashvilleian, Nashvilleian, gang. Like I grew up I didn't grow up in Nashville, but I grew up like an hour south of here, and like we would come up here when I was a kid. I love to talk shit about it, but every time I like go visit my sister in New York, or anytime I
Mhm.
leave the state, I'm like, fuck, I want to be home. Like I
Okay,
miss it. Like as much as I complain about it, it is my favorite place.
good to hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Nashville is
There's a lot of
pretty
good.
cool.
There's a lot of bad. What do you have a least favorite place to play?
In Nashville?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
mean, I probably just don't play those places.
Yeah, you just wouldn't go there. Fair enough.
I mean, I'd leave the east side very infrequently.
Hmm.
Kind of operate on the east side
Yeah,
more. Yeah,
that's cool.
Writers rounds. Those are very peculiar Nashville thing. I used to do a lot of those when I first moved here. I don't think anything like that exists anywhere else in the world. Just 3 or 4 performers.
Hmm.
Just wait around 3 different turns before your song comes
Yeah.
around. Then you have to like really pretend you're loving the songs.
That comes from like an older thing, and Neef and I were actually talking about this.
They don't really do it.
I love it. I
as
think it's a
often
beautiful
as
tradition.
saying,
It's a great tradition. I think we should keep
Hmm.
it. Because once in a while you have those writers around, and you wait your turn, and it's 3
Yeah.
other folks, and you just in the matter of 15 minutes you hear 3 songs and 3 completely different writers talking about how they wrote the song. And when they're good, it can change you right there on stage.
Yeah.
And then by the time your song comes around, you just play that song differently than you ever played it before.
Sure. And it might be rough and you're still working things out, but it's
Yes.
experimental. I do appreciate
As I'm
it.
speaking
Yeah.
about it, I've realized that I miss playing those. So yeah.
Well, Anana, thank you so much for your time. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're a really good guest. I'd love to have you back sometime.
I'd love to be back.
Check out Anana Kaye. I assume you're on all the streaming platforms.
I am all the stream on all the platforms.
Very cool. And we'll see you next week, Alice.
Ciao.